Hi there, I'm David Coffey of Bosley Real Estate, and today we have a question that I think is very timely. Does the government actually need to step in to cool down the real estate market here in Toronto? Well, the government seems to think so, but is the timing right? Let's rewind a little bit. The demand for affordable housing here in Canada has been part of the real estate landscape for about 20 years. Prices have been going up significantly during that time. But it is only in the last few years where it has become a top tier issue for the federal government. In the last election, it was a major platform issue for all three parties involved. But here's the twist. In Toronto, yes, we do have a pricey market, but prices have not been climbing since 2022. Funny how that works. When prices were soaring, the government was not doing very much for affordability. And now that they have stabilized and even come down, they are all in on affordability. So is this the right time for the government to be jumping in? Let's look at the numbers. In May of 2023, the MOI, or months of inventory for condo apartments here in Toronto, was 1.71. That means it would take 1.71 months to sell all of the inventory of condo apartments here in Toronto. And that is a seller's market. Anything under 4 months is generally a seller's market. Now in May of 2024, we had an MOI of 4.77. That is a balanced market. And in May of 2025 for the Toronto condos, we had a month of inventory of 7.84, putting that into a buyer's market. And when you are in a buyer's market, there are more pressures on prices and more growing inventory, and that is certainly what we have been seeing here in Toronto. Even in the in-demand detached house market, the trend is similar. In May of 2023, we have an MOI of 1.40. May of 2024, we have an MOI of 2.54. And in May of 2025, this past May, we have an MOI of 3.93. The story, inventory is up, prices are coming down, especially for Toronto condos. So it's now really the right time to be applying more pressure to the Toronto real estate market. There's a risk that the government can go too far and push the market down harder than they intended. Now, for many buyers, they would be very happy to get that news and see the lower prices. But for sellers and the larger economy, it would be a problem. It all comes down to timing. And as we know with real estate, it is hard to time the market. There's also a long-term supply issue brewing, and this is where things get trickier. Pre-construction condo proposals are at one of the lowest levels since the 90s. Even current projects right now are being canceled or going into receivership. That means in 5 to 10 years, we will see far fewer condos coming to fruition, and then we will see a sudden constriction of the housing supply here in Toronto. It's a classic real estate cycle. Inventory builds, prices soften, demand returns, and then the supply starts to tighten again. So even if we feel well stocked right now, there could be a supply moment down the road where things tighten up rather quickly, especially if Toronto keeps growing. And let's not forget what's behind the current softness: tariff disputes, economic uncertainty, and a slowdown in immigration. We will need confidence to return back to the market. We will also need to turn the immigration taps back on to fill all those positions that the boomers are leaving. And in order to have all that immigration, we will need to have a place for all of those new immigrants to live. Can the government create housing? Will their latest idea of prefab housing work? Well, it may be a little too early to tell, but history does tell us that maybe we shouldn't be so confident in the efforts of the government when it comes to creating housing. Personally, I think it is easier to incentivize developers, tax breaks, quicker approval processes, and of course, a focus on the missing middle, duplexes and townhomes. Let's focus on getting things built that people want to live in with a lot less red tape. At the end of the day, we do need more housing here in Toronto. So it may appear that we have a lot of inventory right now, but these government strategies to have more housing will take years to play out. And when it is finally done, all this housing will emerge in a very different market. I'm David Coffey of Bosley Real Estate. If you like what you're seeing here, please do consider hitting like or subscribe.